In this video, we're talking about why it's time for the PS5 Pro, some early news on the next state of play, and Sony's first FPS in like a decade. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and this is my channel PSReady with all the latest PlayStation news. So if you want to keep up to date on everything related to your PlayStation 5, help me out and subscribe to the channel, and if you're feeling extra generous, set your notifications to all. This video is sponsored by Star Trek Fleet Command. Star Trek Fleet Command is a cross-play game that's available on PC and mobile with the Scopely account, so you can play on the go or at home and seamlessly connect your game. You can customize your fleet with iconic ships and characters spanning 50 years of Star Trek storytelling, and all of the universes are included, which is really cool. I'm partial to the J.J. Abrams universe because I saw those movies in theaters when I was growing up, but if you're into Star Trek Discovery or pretty much any other Star Trek series, they have you covered. And the game includes all the fan favorite characters like Kirk, Spock, Data, and Geordi. What I really enjoy about this game is building and upgrading powerful ships, including the USS Enterprise, the Romulan Warbird, and the Klingon Bird of Prey. The game is free to play, and every month new events and content are being added, so there's never been a better time to jump in. Kick off 2024 with the first stage of the Enterprise arc. You'll be able to explore the aftermath of the temporal Cold War plotline from Season 3 of Star Trek Enterprise, and Enterprise Part 1 also brings a huge expansion to the X-Borg faction, with a loop featuring new multi-buff Xindi hostiles. You'll also get 2 new officers, Trip Tucker, the dedicated engineer, and T'Pol, the Vulcan science officer. Right now, you can use the promo code WARPSPEED to unlock Captain James T. Kirk, who's an all-around great character. All you have to do is download Star Trek Fleet Command using the link in my description, or by scanning a QR code on the screen. Once in the game, go to your player profile, open settings, choose general, and scroll down to the very end to sign up for your Scopely account. Then go to the official website, StarTrekFleetCommand.com, and click the store icon on the header to log into your Scopely account to visit the web store. Once you're in the store, access promo codes on the left hand of the menu. Open the promo codes page, and lastly, enter that code WARPSPEED to redeem your rewards. Once your rewards are successfully redeemed, you'll be able to see them when you go back to your game. You just have to do it before you're level 10. Huge shout out once again to Star Trek Fleet Command for sponsoring this video. I'm gonna go jump back into the game. The first news story I want to cover is the next state of play. Thankfully, this is no longer a leak or a rumor. It's actually official. It was announced by Sony right before I filmed this video. It's happening this Wednesday, January 31st at 5 p.m. Eastern time. I'm gonna watch it with my buddies on Discord. I'm really excited. Over the weekend, Speshul Nick actually put out a tweet where he spelled out every game we're going to see. And if this is true, which I think it is, this is going to be a really big state of play. So the actual tweet reads, on the 31st, Ronins will rise, will die stranded, have a rebirth, and Kojima will fulfill his dream. Sonic will live in the shadow of his generation while the hills remain silent until dawn, when you'll need to catch a metro. Just don't be a Judas about it. So yeah, this wasn't hard to decipher at all, so I'm going to go through all the games in order. Rise of the Ronin is the first one. This is an open world samurai game. I was initially really interested in this because I saw the main character using a gun, and he has like the Fortnite glider, which I like that form of traversal. I think it's pretty cool in a game like this. I know people are kind of getting sick of all of these open world samurai games, but like I think they're at their peak, and the only problem with this game for me honestly is that it comes out the same day as Dragon's Dogma 2, which I am all in on. I'm all in on Dragon's Dogma 2. I'll definitely try out Rise of the Ronin just to give some quick impressions here on the channel, but yeah, I think people are excited for this game, and it's very clear that Sony is too, because they're focusing very heavily on it in marketing and in the state of play. The second game on the list is Death Stranding 2. I'm also very excited for this. Allegedly, the subtitle is going to be The Beach, which makes sense if you played the original Death Stranding. That's kind of where things end up. That's not really a spoiler, it's just a location. And allegedly, this one's also going to be focused more on boat travel than walking simulator. So yeah, I like to see the gameplay shaken up, because while I liked the walking simulator style gameplay and the exploration based gameplay in the first game, it's like 50 or 60 hours long, and I played it twice. So I'm ready for something new from Kojima that's like a different form of traversal. This game is definitely also coming out this year, which is exciting in and of itself. So I think this is a great game for the state of play. Like, keep Kojima locked in with PlayStation as much as possible. The third game is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I am very excited for. I told you guys I've been playing Final Fantasy VII Remake leading up to the release of Rebirth, and I like it. I don't love it. The things I do love about it are the graphics, the amount of detail, and the combat is incredible. I also love the characters like Cloud, Tifa, Aerith. Every one of them is very well fleshed out and well written and well voice acted. They use a lot of slang like from the 90s in this game, which hits me really hard because I grew up in the 90s, so hearing them say stuff sucks is really cool. I don't know, it's just like something that really stood out to me while playing it. The one problem I have with it though is it's really linear. Like, you're just going from cutscene to cutscene a lot of the time, and I know it's supposed to open up later in the game, but I'm already on like chapter 11, so I'm kind of waiting for that to happen. The reason I'm excited for Rebirth though is it addresses that main complaint by being an open world game. Cloud is getting a lot of traversal mechanics. It's going to have seamless open world biomes that you can travel between. So that's what's kind of pushing me through Rebirth, because it's so story centric. I feel like I can't just skip to Rebirth without playing Remake. Fourth on the list is Sonic Generations Remastered. I think this is a slam dunk for Sega. They've kind of been up and down with Sonic, I know, but like this is the one Sonic game I actually played back in the day when it came out, and I thought it was cool switching between the 2D Sonic that was like cuter and then the meaner like 3D Sonic in the actual game. And I think a lot of the Sonic fans agree that this is the best Sonic game to come out in a long time. So that's not really a huge hit in the state of play, but I think it's a good thing to include because Sega has been buddy with Microsoft lately, so getting them back in the Sony camp is important. The real bread and butter for me obviously is of course Silent Hill 2 Remake. I'm very curious about this game. I played through Silent Hill 2 for the third time last year with the enhanced edition on my Steam Deck, and if they can improve on the combat, which would be really easy because the combat is garbage in the original Silent Hill 2, I think that could be really cool. I know the Silent Hill fans are scrutinizing this with like a fine-tooth comb just because Bloober Team hasn't had the best track record, but I still think they're a little underrated, and I want to see them have a real game. And I don't mean that negatively towards their other games, but a lot of their stuff has been walking simulator, story-driven type stuff, so to see some real gameplay come from them, I think could be cool. You know, Konami, it's hit or miss with them. It's either you get a great game or you get a really garbage game, and I'm really hoping this one comes together as a great game because Silent Hill has been gone for far too long. The next one is a new Metro game. I was so stoked when I saw Metro on this tweet and then figured it out with the list of games, and then when I found out it's a VR game, I just like deflated. I love VR, you know, I like it in games like Gran Turismo 7. Resident Evil Village was also a great experience. I haven't gone back and tried Resident Evil 4 yet just because my main save is on PC and I'm not ready to replay a fresh save on that game, but VR is cool. I just like really love the Metro series, and I was excited about a new game because it's been a long time since Metro Exodus, which is really good. If you haven't played it, it runs awesome. It looks incredible. It got a PS5 remaster. That's one of the better looking and running games on the console. So yeah, I was excited about a new Metro game, just not like a Half-Life Alyx transition of it. I want a full Metro game, and I hope whatever this VR game is, it teases the next real Metro, because that's what I think I and a lot of fans really want. Next up, we have Judas, which is the new game from Ken Levine. I could not be more excited. I am a Ken Levine diehard fan. I got BioShock 1 on my Xbox 360. I bought a used copy from Blockbuster in 2008. I played it through like 6 times, and it's one of my favorite games ever. I went back and played BioShock 2 during 2020. I thought it was good. The Minerva's Den DLC is like 10 times better than the actual game. I am one of the like few defenders of BioShock Infinite. The story doesn't hit as hard, obviously, but I think the world created with Columbia and the overall improvements to the shooting really made that game something special, and it's one that I've revisited quite a few times. So having a big gap between that and Judas has made me really want Judas to come out. I thought the initial trailer was cool. It was all CGI though, so I'm hoping we get to see some gameplay and maybe a release date. And Sony themselves have told us that we're going to see Stellar Blade. I know people are hyped for this game. It's just not for me. It's not the type of game I'm looking for from Sony, but the hype is infectious, so I'm hoping that seeing it with a release date and more gameplay at the state of play will get me on the hype train for it, because I think it's going to be one of the bigger exclusives for PlayStation this year. So yeah, compared to the showcase, I think this is a great list of games to show off at a state of play. Last year, we got an awesome state of play right around the same time that featured Resident Evil 4 and a bunch of other awesome games from Capcom. So this time around, it seems like it's a great mix of different developers from around the world, and it's really what Sony needs right now, right? Like they need some excitement about games coming out in 2024. I know you could criticize them on, you know, not having a lot of true first-party exclusive games, but the whole point of having a PlayStation 5 is having good games to play, and I've been liking a lot of third-party games lately, so I think Sony can really nail this if they show off a lot of gameplay and not a lot of like CGI stories, trailers that don't really show you what the games actually are. The second news story I have for you guys today is about my most anticipated game for the first half of 2024, which is of course Dragon's Dogma 2. Unfortunately, this is not a positive news story. I figured this was coming because Capcom's been so quiet about the performance of this game, but based on the IGN first gameplay that we've gotten and all the other news around it, I saw the writing on the wall, and the news is that this is going to be a 30 FPS release at launch, and it's not even going to have the performance mode that runs between 40 and 60 that we've seen in games like Final Fantasy 16. It's just going to be a flat 30 FPS game. This news was first reported on by an account called PC Focus. They found a forum post from someone in Japan who's also a verified leaker. And then Tech for Gamers went into this even deeper. They went over to the Steam page, and at the bottom of every Steam listing for any game, there's a recommended spec and a minimum spec for a PC. And the recommended spec for Dragon's Dogma 2 is a CPU that's essentially on par with what we have in the Series X and the PS5. And it says that that's for 30 FPS. So when you combine all of the evidence we have, which is gameplay that looks like it's running at 30, you needing a CPU to run at 30 that's equivalent with the Series X, and a lot of these leaks from Japan straight from the source, it's very clear that this is going to be a 30 FPS release. I'm not gonna lie, even for me, someone who's so extremely hyped for this game, that is pretty disappointing, especially considering that it's built on the RE engine, which traditionally, like we've seen every release in the RE engine basically be a 60 FPS lock on the PlayStation 5. I'd rather them focus on frame rate over anything else, just because this game is set up exactly like the original Dragon's Dogma. Back when that game came out, it came out right around the same time as Dark Souls, so people directly compared it to Dark Souls in reviews. Critics were definitely way too harsh on it, but because of that, it didn't sell well at launch, and then it took a long time, but it actually was discovered by fans and ended up being one of Capcom's best-selling games ever. Now with Dragon's Dogma 2, it's releasing right around the same time as Rise of the Ronin, which is a very similar style game. It's an open world action game, and it's going to be put right in the middle of a whole bunch of other games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is also open world and made by a Japanese developer with sword-based combat. So I think they kind of need to do anything they can to check off these boxes that people are scrutinizing games for, 60 FPS included. And then on top of that, another thing that's coming over from the original Dragon's Dogma is that you only get one save file. So your manual saves and your automatic saves are all saving to one save file. You can't have other save files. And of course, on PC with Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, people made a mod that gave you a save manager so you could have different characters and try out different builds. That's not going to work on the PlayStation 5. So what this really presents, which I know is going to get some people upset, is the true need for the PS5 Pro, right? Like, we need to stop having games that run at 30 FPS. It's become very clear that even with the performance bump that we got at the outset with the PlayStation 5, it's just not enough for these truly next-gen games that are really pushing the boundaries. And I know Dragon's Dogma on the surface looks like it's not really pushing the boundaries, but what I'm hoping is, because Capcom has really earned grace, I think, in this department, they're just showing off small gameplay from the beginning of the game, and then once you get through the tutorial or maybe the first few hours, it'll really open up and show us everything new. When you compare it to games from last year like Final Fantasy 16, which really pushed that 30 FPS limit to its max, I think we really need the PS5 Pro this year, and a lot of these games should just get that PS5 Pro mode that allows them to run at 60 FPS. At first, I kind of felt bad for all the people who bought the PS5 Slim at the end of last year, but if you were waiting until 2023 to buy a PlayStation 5 in the first place, you're probably not someone who's really focused on getting cutting edge gameplay. So for you, I don't necessarily think that 30 FPS versus 60 is going to make that big of a difference. But for someone like me, who's a hardcore gamer, who went out of their way to make sure they could get a PS5 at launch and really loved the big jump that we got in performance that resulted in 60 FPS gameplay with pretty much every big release that came to it for those first couple of years, I think I will be happy to upgrade to a PlayStation 5 Pro if I can be guaranteed that 60 FPS for at least a couple more years towards the end of the generation. And speaking of Sony really reading the tea leaves here, let's talk about Concord. I know that when it was announced, it was with the CGI trailer and no one was really excited about it because it's a live service game from Sony, but more details have come out about it that honestly make it sound pretty cool. So what we do know officially is that this game is a multiplayer FPS. It's coming out in 2024, which is both promising aspects because Sony hasn't released an FPS from the first party since like Killzone Shadowfall, which was a launch title for the PlayStation 4. So they have been extremely lacking when it comes to FPS experiences. And a lot of the games that I enjoyed playing on the PS4 and PS5 that are FPS games are now Xbox exclusive franchises like Wolfenstein or Doom. And on top of that, the biggest franchise in the FPS genre, which is of course Call of Duty, that's not exclusive to Xbox, but Xbox does own it. So the need from Sony to have some competition in the FPS realm, it is there. And I don't want it at the sacrifice of third-person action games that are story-driven because that's obviously what Sony's very good at. But that being said, I don't think it's bad when they open up new studios, like the studio working on Concord, to actually make these FPS games. What I don't want to see is developers like Naughty Dog or Ben Studio or Santa Monica Studio or Sucker Punch transitioning to FPS. I think they're making the right move by making a new studio to do so. So the new update we have around Concord is that it's going to be very inspired by Guardians of the Galaxy, which is like music to my ears. I love the vibe of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, this ragtag group of anti-heroes who kind of come together as a family towards the end of the first movie, and then you see where it ends up in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. That was one of my favorite movies of 2023, and I think if they can get that vibe right with the music, the characters and everything like that, and just the overall tone of the world, I think that could be a really cool sort of new game in Sony's roster of awesome first-party IP. Of course, the biggest knocks against it are that it's going to be an always online live service game. I really hope Sony sees what's happening with games like Avengers or now Suicide Squad, where people really want an offline mode, and they sort of have that functionality built into Concord from the start. But I don't necessarily think that's going to happen just because of what happened with Gran Turismo 7, where they wanted that to become a live service platform, and we had that huge launch issue with that game where it wasn't working for like at least a week when it came out, and the stuff that was actually playable offline on the disc did not give you the ability to really play that game at all. Also, I just wanted to say, if you're into the Steam Deck like I am, check out my channel Deck Ready. I do news updates there as well, and I even get a little bit deeper. I talk about other hardware, I review accessories and everything like that, because unlike the PS5, there's a lot more third-party stuff that you can mess around with on the Steam Deck, just because it's an open source PC platform. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you today. Make sure you let me know what you think down in the comments below, and remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.